A stranger broke into our house just to say my real family was looking for me. I was washing dishes when the front door slammed so hard the walls shook. At first, I thought it was my dad. He always came home angry. But the footsteps were wrong. Too fast, too heavy. I froze, gripping the wet plate in my hands. Before I could move, a man I had never seen in my life stumbled into the kitchen, breathing like he had been running for miles. His clothes were torn, his hands shaking, his eyes wide with panic. "Please," he whispered, "you need to listen. There isn't much time." I stepped back until my spine hit the counter. "Get out," I said, my voice barely audible. "My dad, he'll be home any minute." He shook his head violently. "They're not your family. None of them are. Your real family. They're looking for you." My heart dropped. He sounded crazy, completely unhinged, but there was something in his eyes, a desperation that felt too real to ignore. "You have the wrong person," I whispered. He reached into his pocket slowly, like he didn't want to scare me, and pulled out a folded photograph. He held it out with trembling fingers. On it, a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket, held by two people whose faces were blurred, like the camera had caught them mid-movement. But written on the corner, in faded ink, was my name, my real name, not the one on my school records, not the one my parents shouted when they were angry, the name I used to hear in dreams I forgot every morning. "How do you know this?" I asked, feeling my pulse hammering behind my ears. "They've been searching for you for years," he said, "but the people you live with now, they're hiding you. They took you." I wanted to scream, to push him away, to deny everything, but the truth was, something inside me broke the moment I saw that picture, a crack that let in all the memories I never understood, faces with no names, lullabies I didn't recognize, a hand I remembered holding but couldn't match to anyone in this house. "Why now?" I whispered. "Why tell me this now?" His voice trembled. "Because I just found out they're moving you tonight. Somewhere you'll never be found." Fear crawled up my throat. I didn't want to believe him, but a part of me already did. Then headlights flashed through the window. A car rolled into the driveway, the stranger's face drained of color. "They're early," he muttered. "You have to decide right now. Stay with them or come with me." My legs turned to stone. My mind spiraled. Behind that door was the only life I'd ever known. Cold, strict, unloving, but familiar. In front of me stood a stranger who somehow knew the lullaby that played in my dreams. He leaned closer. "Your real mother never stopped praying for you. She thinks you're dead. Let me take you to her." The front door handle turned. Voices echoed in the hall. My heart thundered, and with every second that passed, I realized the scariest part wasn't the stranger. It was how desperately I wanted him to be telling the truth. When the door began to open, I made my choice. I ran.
A stranger showed up, claiming to be my sister, and she knew things no one should know. I was getting ready to leave for work when someone knocked on the door. 3 soft tops, like the person on the other side wasn't sure if they should even be there. I opened it, expecting a delivery, maybe a neighbor. Instead, a girl about my age stood there, soaked from the rain, trembling, staring at me like she had waited her whole life for this moment. Her voice cracked the second she spoke. "Please, don't shut the door. I need to see you." I gripped the door tighter. "Do I know you?" Her eyes flooded instantly. "Yes, you do, or you did." Before I could react, she reached into her backpack and pulled out a small, worn notebook. It was pale blue, faded, stained, and held together by an elastic band. My stomach twisted. I had seen that notebook before. Years ago. The last time I saw it was the night I lost something I had never been allowed to talk about, something my parents forbade me from mentioning. She held it out. "This is yours." "No," I whispered. "It was stolen." She nodded. "I know, because I'm the one who took it." My throat tightened. My hands shook. I didn't understand why, but I knew, somewhere deep in the part of myself I never touched, that this person wasn't lying. I stepped back. "Who are you?" Her answer shattered the air. "I'm your sister." I laughed. I actually laughed, panic mixed with disbelief. "I don't have a sister." "That's what they told you." "That's what they told me too." The hallway felt too small. The house suddenly felt wrong, like the walls were listening. She stepped forward carefully, as if one sudden move would break everything. "You had nightmares when you were 7, she said softly. "You used to wake up screaming my name." My blood froze. "No one knows that. You kept your toothbrush in the drawer under the sink because you were scared Dad would yell at you for leaving it out. How you still get dizzy when someone touches your left shoulder." My knees weakened.
I had that habit since childhood. She looked at me with a pain so familiar it frightened me. We grew up together until they separated us. You're lying, I said, but my voice betrayed me. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. You had a scar here. She pointed to her own eyebrow. From when you fell off the swing and I carried you inside because you couldn't stop crying. I pressed my fingers to my eyebrow. The scar was still there. I looked for you for years, she whispered. Every year, every city, every list of missing children. I never stopped. I stepped back, shaking. Why didn't anyone tell me? Her expression hardened, but her eyes stayed soft, sod, broken. Because the people who raised you aren't who you think they are. A wave of nausea hit me. She reached out and gently placed the notebook in my hands. It felt foreign and familiar at the same time. When I opened it, the first page was a drawing I made when I was 6, a stick figure holding hands with a taller girl wearing a purple shirt. The title above it read, Me and Sissy. I hadn't written that word in over a decade. Your real name, she said, voice trembling, is on the last page. My fingers shook violently as I flipped through the notebook. At the last page, written in childish handwriting, was a name. My name, but not the one I'd been using for years. A name I vaguely remembered someone calling me once, before the memory was ripped away. I looked up at her, breath hitching. What happened to us? Tears spilled down her face, but she didn't look away. They took you, she said, and they threatened anyone who tried to take you back. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her face. My face. The same eyes, the same nose, the same trembling chin. I'm not here to hurt you, she said. I'm here to take you home, if you still want to go. Home, a word that suddenly felt like a wound. I didn't move. I couldn't breathe, because for the first time in my life, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't a stranger. She was the only person who had truly known me. Everyone in my family pretended not to know him, except he was in every photo. I first noticed him on a Sunday afternoon while flipping through the old family albums my mom kept hidden under her bed. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just bored, curious, nostalgic. But then my finger stopped on a photo that didn't make sense. A birthday party. I was turning 6. Balloons, cake, relatives smiling. And behind my dad, half hidden, blurred but unmistakably there, stood a man I didn't recognize. At least, I thought I didn't. He had one hand on my shoulder, like he belonged there, like he had every right to touch me. I frowned and called out, Mom? Who is this? She walked over, glanced at the picture for not even a second, and said too quickly, Nobody, just someone who worked at the event hall. But we never rented event halls. I didn't argue, not yet, but something in her voice felt wrong, tight, rehearsed, scared. That night, I went through another album, then another, and another. He was in every single one, sometimes in the back, sometimes beside me, sometimes half cropped out, but always there, always watching, always close, a ghost nobody talked about. The next morning at breakfast, I showed my dad a picture of him sitting at a picnic table, my dad laughing, my mom pouring lemonade, and the man sitting right beside me, smiling like he was part of us. My dad didn't even blink. I don't know him, but his hand shook when he put the picture down. My stomach knotted. How can he be in every album? Why is he always next to me? My dad snapped. Drop it. I didn't. I zoomed in on one picture after another. Birthday parties, holidays, school events. He aged with us, older in the newer photos, younger in the older ones. He wasn't photoshopped, he wasn't random. He was connected. I confronted my grandmother next. She was the only one who never lied convincingly. When I showed her the photos, her face went pale, like all the color in her body drained at once. She made the sign of the cross, something she only did when she was terrified. Where did you get these? She whispered. Grandma, who is he? She looked around the room as if someone might be listening. Then she pushed the album away like it was poisonous. You need to stop asking about him. Right now. Why? Because your parents will do anything to keep him out of your life. Anything. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my ears. But who is he? She closed her eyes. Your parents made a choice a long time ago. A choice to erase him, to pretend he never existed. Her voice cracked, and they promised never to speak his name again. I barely slept that night. His face kept appearing behind my eyelids, smiling, watching, familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. The next day, I printed out the clearest photo and went to a local photo restoration place. The man behind the desk enhanced it, sharpened it, adjusted the lighting. When he turned the screen toward me, my entire body went numb. The man in the picture had my eyes, my jawline, my hair. He looked like me. Older, heavier, tired, but undeniably connected. The man behind the counter frowned. "Is that your dad?" "No," I whispered. "At least, I don't think so." I went home shaking. When I walked inside, both my parents were waiting for me at the table, sitting too straight, hands clasped together. My mom's voice trembled. "We need to talk." My dad looked like he hadn't slept. He slid the restored photo toward him and flinched. "You went too far," he said quietly. "We tried to protect you." "From what?" I shouted. "From who?" My mom started crying. My dad finally whispered the truth through clenched teeth. "From him. From the man in the photos." "Why?" I demanded. My mom wiped her face and whispered the words that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. "Because he's your real father, and he wasn't supposed to find you." I thought my childhood memories were real, until someone proved they were all lies. My childhood memories were the only place that ever felt safe. No matter how chaotic my life became, I could close my eyes and return to those warm moments, the nights my father carried me on his shoulders, the soft songs my mother hummed while braiding my hair, the rainy afternoons when my little brother and I played until we were soaked. I believed in those memories the way people believe in prayers, until someone told me every single one of them was a lie. It happened on a Tuesday after work. An elderly woman called me from an unknown number. Her voice shook so much I thought she might collapse mid-sentence. "I need to speak with you," she said. "It's urgent. It's about your past." At first, I was ready to hang up, but something inside me, something cold and uneasy, tightened around my ribs. So I went. She was waiting in a tiny, dim-lit office. When she saw me, her eyes widened like she was staring at a ghost. "I was your childhood psychologist," she whispered. "They never let me tell you anything, but I'm old now, and I won't die with this secret." My stomach twisted. "Tell me what?" Her hands trembled as she opened a battered folder filled with documents. My name, my age, reports, evaluations, photos, all stamped with institutions I had never heard of. "You were not raised by your parents. From age 4 to 11, you lived in state protection. The people you call your family only adopted you under a special program." I froze. "That's impossible," I said. "I remember my parents. I remember growing up with them. I remember everything." She shook her head with heartbreaking sadness. "You remember what they wanted you to remember. Your real childhood memories were removed. The ones you have now were implanted and reinforced through therapy." The words slammed into me so hard I forgot how to breathe. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would anyone erase my life?" She swallowed. "Because your real childhood was dangerous. You were the only witness to a violent case involving your biological family. The government wiped your memories to protect you." My pulse hammered in my ears. "What happened to me?" I asked. She looked at me with fear of me remembering. "You witnessed something no child was supposed to see. Something that put your life in danger." I pressed my nails into my palms. "And my adoptive parents? They knew?" She hesitated before answering. "Yes, they agreed to raise you under strict guidelines. They were never allowed to tell you who you truly were." I felt something inside me crack. All those warm memories, summer nights, birthday parties, family trips, they flickered like dying flames. Were they built on a foundation of lies? When I confronted my parents, they were already waiting in the living room, pale and tense, as if someone had warned them. I held up the folder. "What is this?" My mother burst into tears. My father just stared at the floor. "We loved you. We still do. Nothing about that was fake, except everything was fake," I shouted. "My memories, my life, none of it belonged to me." My father finally looked up, his eyes full of a guilt that aged him 10 years. "We didn't give you those memories. We only filled in the blanks. The government built the rest." Then my mother whispered the words I will never forget. "Your real memories will start coming back soon, and when they do, be careful. Not everything in your childhood wants to stay buried." A chill ran through me so sharply that I felt it in my bones. Because she wasn't warning me about the past, she was warning me about the people in it. My best friend disappeared after confessing what he saw in my house. My best friend Liam had been to my house 100 times growing up. Sleepovers, movie nights, exams we pretended to study for. He practically lived in our kitchen more than his own. So when he stopped coming over in high school and started avoiding my entire family, I assumed it was just normal teenage drifting. I never thought it had anything to do with something he saw. He only told me the truth the night before he disappeared. It happened on a rainy evening. I found him sitting in his car outside my house, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. "I need to talk to you," he said, refusing to step out of the car. "But you have to promise you won't go inside afterward." My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" His eyes darted toward my house, the dark windows glowing faintly behind the curtains. "I never told you," he whispered, "what happened that night in 7th grade." I frowned. "What night?" "The night your parents left us alone in the living room. The night we heard footsteps upstairs." I remembered that night, vaguely. Liam and I watching TV, my parents going out for a late errand, but nothing strange stood out in my memory. He shook his head. "You don't remember because you told yourself it was nothing. But I saw someone. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there." A cold shiver crawled up my spine. "What did you see, Liam?" He swallowed hard, as if saying it out loud might pull something into the present. "I went to the bathroom," he said, "and on the way back, I saw a girl standing at the end of the hallway." My breath caught. "A girl?" He nodded. "Her hair was tangled. She looked terrified, and she mouthed something to me." "What did she say?" He hesitated. His voice dropped to a broken whisper. "She said, 'Don't let them know I'm here.'" The world around me seemed to shrink, like all sound had been sucked away. "I thought she was your cousin or something," he continued. "But when your parents came home, your mom looked up the stairs and said, 'Good, she stayed quiet tonight.'" My stomach twisted in a way I couldn't describe. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" I breathed. "Because I tried. Every time I came back to this house, I saw something worse. Lights turning on upstairs by themselves, shadows moving behind doors, crying that stopped when someone walked by." He gripped my arm. "There's someone in that house, and your parents know exactly who she is." I felt dizzy, like the ground was shifting. "Liam, none of that makes sense." He cut me off. "There's more. Last night I broke in. I needed to know if she was still there." My heart dropped. "You what?" He leaned closer. "She's alive, and she tried to talk to me, but your father showed up before she could finish." His voice cracked. "You need to leave that house. Now." Before I could speak, he handed me something, a tiny folded paper. "She shoved this into my hand," he said. "Read it somewhere safe." I unfolded it. 3 words were scratched into the page. "I am you." I stared at the message, stunned. "What does that mean?" I whispered. Liam headed it. "Just leave," before a motion sensor light snapped on behind us. Both of us jumped. My father stood on the porch, staring at us without blinking. Liam's voice shook. "I have to go." He drove away before I could stop him. The next morning, he was gone. Not gone as in ignoring my messages. Gone as in missing. His car was found abandoned by the woods. His phone smashed. And the last person he talked to, me, was questioned for hours. I told the police everything. They didn't believe a word. That night, I went back home. My parents were sitting at the dining table, silent, almost expectant. My mother looked up and said calmly, "Don't worry about Liam. He saw something he shouldn't have." My blood ran cold. My father added, "And now you have too." As he stood up, the floorboard above us creaked. One slow, dragging step, the same step Liam had heard all those years ago. My parents vanished overnight, and the note they left wasn't written by them. I woke up to silence, not the normal early morning quiet, but a hollow, unnatural emptiness that made my chest tighten the moment I opened my eyes. My parents were always awake before me. My mom humming in the kitchen, my dad rustling through the newspaper. But that morning, the house felt abandoned. I called out for them once. Twice, no answer. When I walked downstairs, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Cold air, stale and metallic, like the house had been left open all night. Then I saw the back door cracked open, letting in a thin line of fog from the yard. And on the kitchen counter, a folded piece of paper with my name written across the front. At first, I felt relieved. A note meant they'd gone somewhere. maybe an emergency, maybe something early in the morning. But the second I picked it up, everything in me froze. It wasn't my mother's handwriting. It wasn't my father's handwriting. It wasn't even close. The letters were jagged, uneven, almost shaky, like someone who'd never written my name before had tried to imitate it. My throat tightened as I opened it. 3 short sentences. We had to go. Do not look for us. Stay inside the house. Immediately, I knew. These weren't their words. My parents would never leave me alone without saying where they were going. They were protective, overly protective, the kind of parents who texted if they'd be 5 minutes late. And the last line, stay inside the house. That wasn't advice. It was a warning. I searched every room. Their phones were still charging, their wallets on the dresser, my mom's favorite necklace still hanging on her jewelry stand, my dad's shoes still by the door. People don't vanish without taking anything, unless they didn't leave on their own. By noon, I had called every relative, every friend, everyone they knew. Nobody had heard from them. Nobody had seen them. It was as if my parents had been erased from their own lives. But the real horror started when I went through the security footage. The cameras inside the house were untouched, but the ones outside, the ones facing the backyard and driveway, were dead. Black screens, corrupted files, everything from midnight to 5 a.m. had been wiped clean except for 3 seconds of footage. 3 seconds that made my blood run cold. At exactly 3:14 a.m., my parents stood in the backyard, not moving, not talking, facing the woods like they were listening to something. And behind them, just at the edge of the tree line, was a figure, still, tall, blurred, almost like the camera refused to focus on it. The moment the figure lifted its head, the feed cut out completely. That was the last recorded moment of my parents' existence. I showed the footage to the police. They told me it was probably a glitch, that adults leave voluntarily all the time, that a note counted as intent. But that night, I found something hidden behind the fridge, a place only someone desperate would hide something. A second note. This one was in my mother's handwriting. The edges were torn, the paper crumpled, and her writing shook like she'd been crying when she wrote it. We're not alone. They're inside the walls. Whatever happens, don't trust the first note. I dropped the paper and stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. A soft scratching sound came from inside the wall beside me. Slow, deliberate, like someone tracing their fingers along the wooden beams. Then a whisper, so quiet I wasn't sure it was real. You shouldn't have read that. The house suddenly didn't feel empty anymore. It felt occupied. The stranger I saved said we'd met before. In my nightmares. I wasn't supposed to be out that night. It was cold, foggy, the kind of night where even the street lights looked afraid to shine. But I couldn't sleep. I kept waking up from the same nightmare, the one I'd had since childhood, the one with the dark forest, the faceless man, and the whisper that always chased me awake. I walked just to clear my head, but halfway down the empty road, I saw him, a man lying in the middle of the street, barely breathing, his clothes torn like he had been running through barbed wire. At first, I thought he was dead. Then his hand twitched. I hesitated only a moment before rushing to him. Hey, can you hear me? His eyes snapped open. Not slowly, not groggily, like he'd been waiting for me. You found me, he whispered, voice raw, just like you did before. My stomach tightened. Before? We've never met. He shook his head weakly, a strange, broken smile stretching across his bruised face. That's what you think. I helped him sit up, but the moment I touched him, he flinched violently. You shouldn't be here. They follow you when you're awake. They follow me when I run. My skin crawled. Who follows you? He stared past me, into the fog. The ones from your dreams. I froze. I hadn't told anyone about those nightmares. Not my parents, not my friends, nobody. I'd carried them in silence for years because they felt too real, too heavy. But something in his voice, it felt like he had been inside those dreams with me, like he had seen what I saw, like he had stood where I stood. I swallowed hard. How do you know about my nightmares? His breathing quickened, panic rising. Because they're not dreams, not for you, not for me. They're memories. I almost laughed, but the fear pressing against my ribs wouldn't let me. They started when you were 5, right? The running, the woods, the man without a face. I stepped back. My entire body went cold. He couldn't know that. No one could. I don't understand, I whispered. He grabbed my wrist, gently but with desperation. You saved me once, a long time ago, and now it's happening again. Lightning cracked through the clouds, illuminating the street for a split second, and in that moment I saw something behind him, a shadow, tall, thin, standing completely still in the fog, the same shape from my nightmares. I stumbled backward, dragging him with me. We need to go, now. He nodded. They found me. They always find me when you're close. We ran. Or at least I ran, half carrying him as his legs collapsed beneath him. The shadow didn't move, but with every step we took, the air grew heavier, thicker, like the world was being swallowed behind us. When we finally reached my house, he collapsed on the porch, gripping his chest. They want you back, he gasped. They want both of us. My dreams aren't real, I insisted, but the words tasted like a lie. He smiled, a sad, exhausted smile. Then explain why you have this. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small wooden pendant, old, cracked, hand-carved, and on the front was the symbol from my nightmares, the one I always saw before I woke up screaming. My legs buckled. I stared at him, trembling. How did you get that? I whispered. His answer came out barely audible. You gave it to me when we escaped. A chill burrowed into my bones. Escaped? From what? He looked up at me with terror in his eyes. They're coming. And behind us, from the end of the empty street, the shadow finally moved.